Nissan's likeable little Micra Super Mini has always majored in simplicity, durability and a certain curvy charm. This 4th generation model follows in this vein, but adds impressive space efficiency and some particularly economical engine choices. It may be sensible rather than sporty, but this very affordable small car delivers in exactly the areas a small car should. The little Micra is a very significant car in Nissan's history. Originally launched back in the early 80s, it was the first Japanese model to win the European Car of the Year award and the first Far Eastern Super Mini to be purpose-built for Western tastes. Now, to make absolutely sure, Nissan decided to build the 2nd and 3rd generation versions in Britain and style them with a flair perfectly suited to a small car market that was becoming ever more image conscious. These were cars perfectly in tune with their times, as is this one, the 4th generation Micra, launched at the very end of 2010. Like it or not, today's world is a more challenging one, and the small cars that live in it must respond by being more efficient and more affordable. Now, Nissan has solved the first issue through advanced engineering that claims to be able to bring us petrol power with diesel running costs. As for the second, well, switching production to developing countries and selling the car more widely may necessitate more conservative styling, but it has the appealing side effect of enabling Nissan dealers to sell this Super Mini for the price of a smaller city car. Intentionally small and simple, here's a car that seems to add up perfectly on paper. But in practice, let's find out. Now, there's a simplicity to everything about this car that continues when you examine what's under the bonnet. 3 cylinders where other cars would needlessly use 4, and an optional supercharger on the top 98 PS version to provide the kind of super efficient engine option for which other rivals would need pricey diesel power. The 80 PS variant that I'm driving here has a basic, more conventional 1.2 litre engine, but that's the same basic unit that you'll find on all Micras, capable of rest to 60 in 13.7 seconds or 14.5 seconds if you go and pay another £1,000 for the optional CVT automatic. That's an alternative to the 5-speed manual gearbox that I'm using here. Push the engine that hard and refinement inevitably suffers, but provided you're not continually trying to approach a rather modest top speed of about 105 miles an hour, then you should find noise levels to be perfectly acceptable. Around the twisty stuff, you probably won't be expecting this to be one of the sportier Super Minis you could have bought, and it isn't, although body control has been helped by a platform that's stiffer and lighter than that of the previous generation model. The engineering emphasis for this car, though, has been placed firmly on enhancing its suitability for the kind of urban driving that it'll probably spend most of its time doing. So the power steering is light, the low-speed ride very good, and the London taxi rivaling turning circle of just 9.3 metres truly excellent. Couple that with excellent all-round visibility, aided by a nose you can almost see from the driver's seat, not a common thing in many of today's small cars, and you've got a vehicle that you feel around town that you could slot in anywhere, particularly if you tick the extra cost box for Nissan's PSM parking space measurement system. Now, though the styling may be a little more conservative than that of previous generation Micras, this design remains a recognisable part of the family line, with its short upright shape, its arched side windows, its curvy headlamps and its strongly rounded waistline. Now, the Mark III Micra, the previous generation model, was one of the smallest Super Minis in the sector, and it was widely thought that the designers would bring us something a bit bigger this time round. They haven't. Nissan's still believing that small cars should be small. So although this car is slightly longer, marginally wider, a fraction lower and even a little lighter than its predecessor, it remains in absolute terms pretty much the same size. Not that too many will complain from a seat inside. By positioning the wheels at the extreme 4 corners of the car and by stretching the freshly designed V platform upon which this model sits, the designers have been able to make full use of every inch of space. Now the result is that there isn't noticeably less room in here for 4 adults than you get in any other Super Mini, with shoulder room in particular usefully improved over the previous generation model. Now, with an average customer age of 54 for this car, getting in and out needs to be an easy process. Thanks to wide door openings and carefully chosen seat heights, it is. Even the 255 litre boot is a respectable size, able to accommodate 3 aircraft hand luggage cases with another on top. Only when you push forward the rear seat does luggage space begin to suffer in comparison with other Super Mini rivals. There's only 505 litres on offer, nor do the seats fold completely flat. You don't even get a split folding seat on the base version. But you can specify this useful plastic floor base to minimise the effect of muddy boots, and beneath it there's a bit of extra storage room by the spare wheel to enable you to keep valuables away from prying eyes. You do, though, get plenty of interior storage space around the car, with neat touches like this concealed compartment built into the cushion of the front passenger seat. There's a double-layered glove box with a further lidded compartment just above it, and further storage space in the centre console, and of course in the doors with their built-in bottle holders. At the wheel, despite the lack of reach adjustment for the steering wheel, you only get rake adjustment, and on the base variant, a lack of height adjustment for the driver's seat. It's pretty easy to find an ideal driving position very quickly, and the standard of fit and finish achieved by the Indian factory is actually quite impressive, even if the standard of materials used is nothing to write home about. The dashboard design itself pursues what Nissan call a twin bubble theme, matching the circular design of the instrument binnacle with a similar circular design for the glove box in front of the front seat passenger. Now, you might reasonably think that because Nissan has to ship this generation Micra here all the way from India rather than from up the road in Sunderland, that it would be a bit pricier than before. But such are the cost savings of building cars in developing countries that actually precisely the opposite is true. A likely price span of between £9,500 and £14,000 is very good value indeed for a modern Super Mini, especially at the bottom end of the range, where even budget brand models like Hyundai's i20 struggle to compete. Amongst the mainstream alternatives to the 80 brake horsepower 1.2 litre petrol 5-door Micra that I've been driving here, a 1.4 litre 75 brake horsepower Peugeot 207 or Renault Clio will cost you about £1,500 more. A comparable 1.25 litre 82 brake horsepower Ford Fiesta will cost you about £2,000 more, and an equivalent 85 brake horsepower 1.2 litre Vauxhall Corsa would set you back almost £3,000 more. Get my point? The Micra range for the UK is pretty simple. There are no diesel variants this time round, nor will buyers be able to choose from either 3-door or convertible options. Instead, there's a 5-door only body style with power coming from either 80 or 98 brake horsepower versions of this 1.2 litre petrol unit, with a choice of either 5-speed manual or CVT automatic transmission. Now, as you'd probably expect for the money, base variants do without niceties like air conditioning and alloy wheels, but it seems a bit mean to delete basics like a split folding rear seat and height adjustment for the driver's seat. To be fair though, all Micras do come with electric windows, speed sensitive power steering, a trip computer, a 4-speaker CD stereo and Bluetooth phone integration. Popular premium features that are either optional or fitted to plusher models include this glass roof, Nissan's PSM parking space measurement system that'll guide you into the tightest gaps, and a neatly integrated satellite navigation system that's part of the Nissan Connect infotainment package, though that rather curiously forces you to do without a cigarette lighter. Safety-wise, it's pleasing to see that the potentially life-saving ESP stability control system is fitted to all models, adding to a decent safety tally that also runs to twin front, side and curtain airbags, ABS braking, brake assist and electronic brake force distribution. Now, Nissan's decision not to offer a diesel variant on Micras this time round was partly prompted by the efficiency its engineers have managed to wring from the two petrol engines on offer. It's also been helped by the lightness of this car. Compare its 915 kilogram weight, that's 35 kilograms less than the previous generation model, with the 974 kilogram weight of a rival Seat Ibiza, for example. Now, the result of all this is that this car has a range of engines that are about 25% more economic and up to 75% greener than the lineup of units that were available when the previous generation Micra was launched. Few small car buyers, Nissan thinks, will want to pay the premium to trade up to diesel power when a version of this model can return them CO2 emissions of just 98 grams per kilometre. Now, these figures apply to a supercharged 98 brake horsepower 1.2 litre variant fitted with a stop-start system. But even if you go for the more conventional 80 brake horsepower 1.2 litre petrol model that I'm driving here, you can expect 56.5 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and to put out 115 grams per kilometre of CO2. But bear in mind that those figures do fall to 52.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 125 grams per kilometre of CO2 if you opt for the CVT automatic. What else? Well, insurance costs should be cheap, and the especially green-minded might like to know that 98% of the components used in the construction of this Micra are recyclable. Super Minis, Nissan thinks, should be small, easy to drive and very affordable. Now, you might think that that sounds pretty obvious, but it flies in the face of a current trend in this sector that's making such cars larger, sportier, more sophisticated and inevitably more expensive. This fourth generation Micra takes precisely the opposite approach, simplified to appeal to buyers in more than 160 countries. Intentionally compact, yet deceptively practical. In fact, it's one of the most space-efficient cars I can think of. The cash-strapped parents, driving instructors and motorists of a certain age who all flocked to previous generation Micras will continue to love this one, but it deserves to find a wider audience than that. If for you buying a small car is less about style and speed and more an exercise in practicality, efficiency and economics, then you'll bond with this one very well. It is, in short, a car with its priorities right.